Reaching the health and wellness conscious-minded consumer is one of the top priorities of CPG brands and grocery retailers alike. What I can say is after attending dozens of educational sessions at Groceryshop, it became even more apparent than I originally thought coming into the conference. Similar to my last Groceryshop video that I did, the one around CBD, if you guys have not watched that video, I will pop up a link here for you guys to watch that video. I'm going to be kind of following a similar format to that. My original intent with the footage that I captured was to kind of cut it up into digestible episodes and integrate my knowledge on the subject matter. But after rewatching the footage, I realized that by cutting it up, it would take away from the integrity of the panelists' comments by taking those comments out of the context of the whole discussion. That being said, I did add my commentary to the end of the video, so after you guys do watch that panel discussion, you guys will see some of the takeaways that I got from it, ones that I wanted to reinforce to you guys, my audience. But until then, I want you guys to sit back, relax, and enjoy the expert panel discussion. The panelists, if you're watching the video from left to right, sitting down on stage, is going to be Jordana Kier. She is the co-founder and co-CEO of LOLA, a reproductive health care consumer packaged goods brand. You have Brian Durkee. He is the president of Numi Organic Tea, a long-standing tea brand that is fair trade and non-GMO certified. You have Frank Scorpiniti, the CEO of Earth Fare, which is a chain of natural organic grocers on the kind of the East Coast Atlantic states. And then also Mike Lee, which was the moderator.
I wanted to open up with a question that I'd love to go down the line and have each of you kind of touch base on. Is, when you're speaking to the health and wellness customer, I think it's ever so important to have, as a brand, to have a really strong set of sort of mission and values. I think consumers are expecting that these days. So I'd love to kind of hear from each of you, what are your mission and values really, and then how do you manifest that for the consumer in a way that resonates with them? I'd love to start with Jordana.
Sure. Thanks everyone for being here. So when we started LOLA, it was actually first and foremost about what we thought was solving the pain point that we thought was the main one, which was we never seemed to have a tampon when we needed one. And as we started to build our direct-to-consumer subscription-based model, it actually became clear that the bigger issue that we had never really even thought about was the fact that we had never asked ourselves what was in a tampon, what was in these products that we were using and putting in our body for most women about 40 years. And it was then that I think we realized that as we looked in the sort of landscape, there was no brand that spoke to us in an open, direct, authentic way that would give us the straight answers and felt like they were alongside this journey with us as we kind of went throughout our entire reproductive journey. So for us, I think like the mission and the values that we stand for is providing transparent products, really candid conversation, which to be honest was completely missing from the category and has been a real cornerstone of the way that we think about building our brand, as well as a community for her to engage with and learn about kind of the different things that she may need as she kind of goes throughout her entire reproductive journey from what we like to say is from her first period to her last hot flash and beyond.
Awesome, thank you. Brian?
Yeah, good morning everyone, it's great to be here. At Numi Organic Tea, we really focus on serving and celebrating people, planet, and pure tea. And from a people perspective, we focus on healthy products that not only serve the consumer's needs, but that also serve throughout all the communities in which we work in, including our farming communities. We're a leader in fair trade certified products. We focus on the well-being of the farmers and everyone throughout our value chain. We have more than 14,000 farmers that we work with worldwide. So we're looking at their wellness as well as the consumer's wellness. And we feel that that brings an overarching sense of purpose to the brand. And I think part of a consumer's wellness is also knowing that the products they're consuming are doing good for the world. From a planet perspective, we focus on organics and regenerative agriculture, and we focus on sustainable packaging in the CPG space. And we do a number of business operations that really trying to pioneer how we can be more sustainable as a brand. From a pure tea perspective, we're doing only organic products. We don't use any oils or flavorings in any of our products. We let the real ingredients speak for themselves. And we work with lots of different indigenous communities to bring these ingredients that have been used for thousands of years for wellness in those communities to the American and North American consumer. So we really look at that. And when I think about our business model, I think of it kind of akin to the Amazon flywheel, if you will, where we're looking at people, planet, pure tea, then we're looking at the consumer activation, and then the profits. And any one of those that you feed ideally accelerates the rest. So the more that we do for people, and the more we do for planet, the more we have consumer activation. The more we have consumer activation, the more profits that we're able to deliver, and we can keep feeding that loop. So that's how we really look at the business. And our business model is not one that we're a tea company who tries to do good in the world. I think our business model is set up that we're a company that wants to do good in the world and good for the consumer, and we're currently using tea as that vehicle. And we're looking at how we can expand into other categories with this same business model. So over the years and looking through that lens, we're really grateful to our retail partners and our consumers who recognize that when they buy Numi tea, they're buying into something much bigger than a cup of tea. They're buying into a movement that helps drive positive impact to all the communities that we work with, as well as the consumer health. And they're buying into a brand that for 20 years has done our best to go above and beyond to deliver positive, sustainable impact for people and planet.
Awesome, thank you. Frank, how about you?
Good morning. It's nice to be here. At the core of Earth Fair, our reason for being is helping people live healthier, happier, longer lives. And we as Americans sit here today, and for the third year in a row, our fellow Americans are living shorter lives. It's actually, quite a travesty that the richest country in the world has a healthcare system and a health crisis, even ex the opioid matter, where we're living shorter lives. A lot of this, of course, is really what fuels the enthusiasm of what we call our food philosophers in Asheville, North Carolina. And with this core mission to help our customers and their families live happier and longer lives, that really is what creates an unbelievable engagement with our team members, 5,000 strong now in 10 states. And I kind of juxtapose my earlier retail experience, particularly in the drug store segment. And we have this army of health and wellness enthusiasts in our office and in our stores that truly activate the health and wellness ethos in our stores. And without them, of course, we would not be able to create the shopping experience and the environment that our customers enjoy today. The way we sort of bring this to life is through what we call a food philosophy. Not just standards, but a philosophy. Like, why is it that we choose not to sell the things we don't sell? And why do we choose to sell the things that we do sell? And of course, right back to the core, it's helping people be healthy. That food philosophy, we think of it inside of our business as our constitution. That is, you cannot equivocate. It's the philosophy. And while oftentimes there's something that may be an opportunity to sell, kind of adapting from your point, if it's not doing good for people, we prefer not to sell it. And sometimes those are hard decisions, of course, for us. But we really stick to that knitting, and that's what has allowed us to attract the team members that activate our 54 stores today.
I want to follow up on something you said about the decisions about what not to have in your store, and you talk. You're famously known for having what's called your boot list.
Yes.
Right? Can you talk a little bit more about what the boot list is, and sort of how do you decide how to draw that line in the sand, especially when maybe kind of health and wellness is becoming increasingly personalized and things like that. Like, how do you kind of mitigate that?
So the food philosophy, we think of it this way: if the food philosophy is our constitution, we codify what we won't carry on to this boot list, and it's kind of a noun but a verb. Like, it's the way our team thinks about it is this giant boot. We're kicking out these deleterious chemicals that we don't want our customers and our families to have. And it's also evolving over time. We've made some tough decisions about what to remove. We really have, internally, we have a chief medical officer, Dr. Angela Hind. Dr. Hind's been practicing internal medicine for over 25 years, and she's an integrative medical doctor, so she's very connected not only to Western medicine, but the holistic body and the way we sort of manage stress and the way we manage our lives and the foods we put in our body. She really heads up our committee that helps us understand what we're going to add and delete from our assortments, along with our teams of food philosophers in the office. But we brought her into the business about 4 years ago, really because it's such an evolving area for health and wellness, and she really brings, I guess credibility is probably the word to it. She is a medical doctor, and she keeps us on the straight and narrow, I guess is the way to think about that.
Got it, great. And Brian, I mean, on the point of standards, I know you guys are celebrating your 20-year anniversary this year, so congratulations on that. But
Thank you.
Looking across the 20-year journey, right? You guys have kind of maintained high standards throughout, and sometimes that's difficult to do as you're trying to grow, right? Because if you take a cynical point of view, a lot of times when people grow, the standards can kind of slip a little bit, right? But how do you guys manage to kind of keep such a tight rein on kind of what you believe in should go in the product or what doesn't go in the product, just over that 20 years?
Well, I think it comes back to our basic philosophy of every decision. Is it celebrating people? Is it celebrating planet? Is it celebrating pure tea? As we get into new products, it'll be is it celebrating pure products for that matter. But a lot of things have changed over the last 20 years, and we found ourselves as a real pioneer 20 years ago, and now that we're seeing the consumer base is kind of catching up to us, and if we're not careful, we will pass us on what they want to see in the products. And I think that now more than ever, leading with values and leading with vision is the most important thing that we can do. And when we talk about organics, when we talk about products that are better for the consumer, when we talk about doing philanthropic work with our business, those things are not going to go away, and we're going to actually double down on those things. We do need to focus on how do we make these products even more accessible to a broader group of consumers, and we're looking at that and how we can look at price point and other things within our business. But as we continue to grow, we're actually finding that our values now mean more than they ever have. And I have an internal kind of quasi-mathematical equation that we use in our business that's basically V plus R equals I. And what that means is our values plus the relationships that we're able to build with the consumer, with the farmer, with our retailers, distributors, you name it, equals the impact that we can deliver in this world into the consumers. So what we try to focus on is really increasing the sum of our values and the sum of our relationships and find like-minded people, like-minded consumers. How do we partner to deliver a larger impact? So to answer your question, we're intending to double down as we look to the next 20 years.
Awesome, that's exciting. And Jordana, I'd love for you to spend a little bit of time just to give some more color around kind of the unmet needs that you saw when it was like day zero for LOLA, and what was sort of the bug list that you saw out there in the marketplace with what was going on with reproductive health, and how have you sort of launched different services and features and benefits to kind of service that?
Yeah, when we first launched, it was back in 2015, and it definitely felt like the conversation was non-existent when it came to talking very openly about the questions that we might have, whether we were dealing with our period or thinking about having a baby or kind of all the way through menopause. And so I just remember, when we were first sort of scoping the opportunity that we were eventually going to go and pitch investors, we had a lot of focus groups, and the first 5 minutes of the focus groups were like the most awkward 5 minutes because nobody wanted to talk about their own personal stories. But when you kind of broke the ice a little bit and told a little bit about your own journey, cut to 3 hours later, and we had to kick people out of the room because people wanted to continue to engage. And I think that was probably the real aha moment, yes, of course, like we want our products to be made with the highest quality of ingredients. We would never put something in a product that we wouldn't be comfortable sharing, because I think we think of ourselves as our own customers. But it was, I think, to me, the more kind of exciting unmet need in the category and space was twofold. One was there was just no conversation, and I felt very confident and passionate that we could be that leader in the conversation, and that people were looking to us as sort of the expert and the ally who could really be with them throughout this entire journey. And then the other thing is that, you know, there was no comprehensive brand that took somebody through sort of the same feelings of vulnerability and isolation when she was first going through puberty, into becoming sexually active, into thinking about having a baby, all the way through. Like, we were kind of continuously reinventing the wheel. The first, I think, realization that we could build something bigger than just one category was when we started to get calls from parents asking if there was anything for their young daughter who was about to go through puberty. Do we have some content or a bundle of products that we could provide to her? And that, I think, was really inspiring to us to think about how could we build actually an entire platform for her to come and sort of get the content that she needs in order to feel really prepared for that next chapter, and then also provide her with the actual products that she might need. And so that, to me, was the really exciting unmet need that I think for many women, myself included, like, I didn't even know I wanted. But for so many of us, now that there is a space for it, it is what a lot of women crave. I mean, we find that 1 in 4 of our customers will reach out to us proactively to just have a conversation. And that's completely unprecedented. So that's what I think is really special. It's kind of, I think, the core of what we are trying to build with our brand promise, and so far it's paid off.
Yeah, and this whole journey that you're designing around is so incredibly personal. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys have done with personalization in this space, and who else was doing this before? Was there anyone doing this? Like, how do you personalize that journey for your customers?
I mean, so we did a few things, and I would say some of it was kind of more feature-based. So for the uninitiated, there are different size products for depending on kind of where you are in your period. And you go to the shelf in a typical store, and you'll see sort of a predetermined assortment of product. Being a digitally native brand and something that we could kind of own the entire fulfillment process around, we actually offer full customization down to the unit. So that's not something that is, I mean, maybe it's eventually possible in store, but back in 2015, it was just not. It was really unheard of. And so there's sort of that piece, which is, every woman's body is different, every period is different. She should be able to get exactly what she needs to feel prepared to take on her period every month. But then so that's kind of on more of the product feature side. And then I would say there's a huge kind of unmet need on the content piece and sort of the conversation piece. So we do things like we bring in customers into our office. We call them morning mingles. It's about 20 people. I mean, I don't know about you, I would never show up to a brand office to talk about my period, but it's been kind of amazing to see the desire to come share. And frankly, the surprising thing to me is that it's been mostly with strangers. So what we found is that women are more likely to share and be very personal when they're not surrounded by everybody that they know very, very well. So I think the big kind of billion-dollar question for us for next year and beyond is, how do we scale that, right? We could do 1 million more events in our office with 20 to 30 people, and we'll continue to do that. But to us, I think the exciting challenge is, what does that look like at scale? What does that look like digitally? So that's a big focus for us right now.
Awesome. And Frank, as a retailer in a similar vein, how have you sort of managed to kind of take your SKU set and your experience and try to find ways that's personalized for people? Because wellness is so personal.
Excuse me. So the greatest level of personalization we have is through the use of our loyalty program. We have 1.5 million customers that are active in our loyalty database, and right now I'd say we're kind of at more of a bottom level of customization for the way we communicate with each of those customers. And we're working with some third parties to help us get a little more refined at that level. That will give us more opportunity to speak to our customers for their particular needs. And one other way that's quite creative that our team is working on and deployed about 6 months ago is what we call food prescriptions. And a number of, this was kind of the brainchild of Dr. Hind, and her idea was if food is the medicine, how can we help customers with hypertension, congestive heart failure, and so there are teams that are detailing cardiologists to help those physicians, send them to Earth Fair to live a healthier life and potentially get off some of the medications that they might be on. It's very inspiring because we see this quite frequently visiting stores when customers share how I ended up being an Earth Fair customers. A lot of them come to us when either they or a family member or a child is sick, and they may have sort of brought themselves to Earth Fair, or a friend or a physician said that even with hyperactivity in children, eating clean for several weeks in a row, that is with none of these artificial chemicals, a lot of kids do much better under that experience. So that's kind of some of the things that go on. And then that personalization for food attributes, we are just rolling out the opportunity to talk right at the point of sale on the shelf, where we're putting the food attributes onto those labels rather than the labels that the manufacturer has created. Many of those labels are very good, of course, but we've created a shopping key for our customers that we've published in our quarterly magazine called The Clean Plate. And so now customers can read the symbol key and see those symbols on the shelf, because it's very hard otherwise to sort of seek out a particular kind of diet and read every box down the aisle. So that's helped quite a lot as well.
I mean, so what was the genesis of that kind of, right? Because, some might say, like, in the world of wellness and nutrition, a lot of products, frankly, are starting to look like, NASCAR logos a little bit, right? With a lot of certifications. And so, how do you kind of find that right balance of, like, overwhelming the consumer versus giving them the right amount of information on things?
So that's a great question. We have, for many years in our business, we kind of have this lingo that says we read the labels so you don't have to. And it's very interesting when we are out looking in different retailers and trying to learn great things that other retailers do and sort of borrow them or see what we can do better. You see a lot of consumers shopping with their phone. I noted the Pinterest presentation, but a lot of times what we see is customers looking things up, like what's in this stuff. We've freed the customer from that. We read the label so you don't have to. If you look at the boot list and that comports to the level of clean you want, you can shop blindfolded knowing nothing on our shelves contain any of those booted chemicals. So getting to specifically to your question, our customers have really put that trust in us. It's rather sacrosanct. Our team, again, I said we will never break the philosophy. And so the customer has sort of given us a little more credit to be able to put our own labels on the shelves and sort of, fit their diets into those. So I think it's a pretty special place of trust with our customer base today.
Awesome. And Brian, in a slightly similar vein, also, like, the world of tea and choice is quite sprawling, and I think you guys have built a trusted brand. Like, how have you kind of established that trust with people and sort of had an evolving conversation of being their guide through discovering tea, going deeper into tea? Like, can you talk about how you've guided them through that world?
Yeah, well, from our origins, we've always tried to focus on explaining where the product comes from, and tying that into the health benefits and the other aspects of the product. But if you go back 20 years, the majority of teas on the shelf didn't talk about that. And if you ask someone, what does tea look like, they would think it looks like a tea bag or something. And nowadays you see tea leaves and you see all these different marketing schemes that kind of promote what a tea plant looks like. But that's something we focused on from day one, from rooibos, bringing it from South Africa, From certain teas we bring in from China, from certain herbs we bring in from North Africa, from spices we bring in from Indonesia, India, and Sri Lanka. We really focus on where the product comes from, and in doing so, we've had to visit all of these places, and we focus on a tremendous amount of transparency in our supply chain. Our supply chain probably encompasses about 120 farms worldwide, and I think that the majority of our competitors probably have a limited level of transparency in their supply chain. We can trace 90% of our ingredients back to the very specific farm level. And that provides this assurance to the consumer that we're doing our diligence. As we read the label for you, as Frank said, we meet the farmer for you. And I think what we try to focus on there is that allows us to do more for people and more for planet, because we build these relationships, and then we can get more innovative ideas from these farmers. We can do more sustainable activities with these farmers. And on top of that, there's the certification layer. And the certification layer is necessary, and we have a lot of fantastic certification partners, but you don't want to have your product littered with too many certifications. You want to try to grow your brand and your product to a point where hopefully these values that the certifications represent become synonymous with your brand. We've actually had internal discussions about the Going Naked campaign. What if we dropped all certifications? What if we took the money that we put into certifications and pumped that back into making healthier products and making a healthier world for the people that we purchase the products from? I don't know that we're quite ready for that yet. And if there's any certification partners here, we're on board with you. But it's a reality is that you can confuse the consumer with too much of the certification. So we really focus on trying to be as authentic as we possibly can be and educating the consumer on that transparency.
And in our pre-calls, you were saying you've been with Numi for about 16 years, right? And so and I'd love to hear from everyone on this, but I'll start with you, Brian. In talking and reaching out to the health and wellness consumer, how was it different 10 years ago versus today? And how do you think you're going to have to evolve how you communicate with that person 10 years from now?
I think it's much different now. I think I don't know what the statistics were 10 years ago or 16 years ago or 20 years ago, but I know that more than 65% of consumers want products that are good for them and that are healthy for them. And as I mentioned earlier, it kind of fits in what we've always done, but it does change how we communicate about it. I mean, tea should be healthy. Green tea, the antioxidants, etc. You can just assume that tea is healthy, but I think understanding and going back to basics on why these products are healthy is a really important piece. We used to lead with kind of exotic locations and great taste. Now, taste is still going to trump most everything. But now we do need to lead on the benefits that are inherent in these products and always have been. And the new products that we're launching very focused on the benefits side of it. So we're not changing the types of ingredients we're using or our business model whatsoever, but we are trying to address the consumer's needs and meet them where they are. So we just launched a line of daily super shots, which are healthy shots made with only pure ingredients. And we focus on how we can move that out into the marketplace and how we make a shift from just tea to wellness. Although it's not really a shift on the attributes of the product, it's a shift on how we position the brand. And I think that's a really important piece of what we're trying to do right now. I oftentimes talk to people and they say, oh, Numi, we know you've done a lot of great things over the years. You're kind of old school pioneer in this stuff. And that's, I feel like that's a great pat on the back, but we need to be the new school pioneer for the next generation. And I think the consumer's really right for our products. So we need to continue to get stronger at leading with that wellness piece.
Awesome. And Frank, how about you? You know, this landscape for retail and health and wellness has changed so much in the last 5 years, let alone the last 10. But how is it different 10 years ago versus today? And then where do you think you need to evolve to stay relevant and connected to that consumer?
Interesting that the consumer is so much more educated, of course, today. Well, I think what really sets us apart is when our founders in 1975 sort of conceived of the notion of Earth Fare was building healthy from the ground up. That is only healthy assortment. So having that sort of credibility is really important. And the pace of change back then was, let's say you could create planograms that were good for a year or 6 months. There's so much innovation today. There's so much new trending today that we find that we're touching things constantly to bring innovative products to our customers. Otherwise, we are going to be left behind. We have always been viewed as, you know, a leader in having the new, healthier products. So just the pace has been an incredible acceleration with that. On the education side, quite candidly, very difficult at the retail level to educate our customers more than they can get from other sources, but focusing the medical/taste part of it in the clean plate is very important in our quarterly reader that we put out to our customers. And so why should I eat these kinds of foods? Why should I avoid these kinds of foods in a very succinct, readable, visually appealing, and creating kind of a fun atmosphere in the reader is one of the things that we launched 2 years ago, and our customers really look forward to it every 3 months to get that.
Yeah, awesome. And you know, with respect to sort of innovation and kind of staying current, you know, it's, if the customer's a moving target, you know, what are some of the things that you guys have done to kind of keep tabs and a close relationship with them to kind of go to where the puck is, you know, going to be, not where it is today?
Yeah, so I guess one of the things is creators of new products. That is just, we have to kind of be hunting the new products down and not waiting for them to come to us, which sometimes that has been, because it's hard. You have your day job and now you have to go look for what's the new innovating products that you're going to take a risk on to put, you know, move something out of the way and put it on our shelves. So that's been a big push in the last 2 years for us.
Yeah, awesome. And Jordana, sort of describe a little bit about you guys' approach to innovation and how you kind of maintain that, and maybe also, like, you know, what role has the stigmatization of some of those conversations you've had kind of maybe hindered that or maybe even helped it?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually there's still so much stigma in these categories. I think where we've been able to approach it in a way that gives us the advantage is that women now see us as their confidant, and I mean, we're getting hundreds of product suggestions a month inbound proactively. So, you know, in my mind, that's an exciting validation of the brand we've built and the ability to, you know, ensure that women feel like they're being heard, and that, you know, I mean, the first period kit was inspired by our customers. They were inspired by moms and dads, and so I think that was a really, there's still a lot of work to be done as far as kind of chipping away at some of these taboos. We're excited to be leading the way here. I think to sort of touch on the earlier question around kind of, you know, how educating the consumer. I mean, for us, 5 years ago it was really difficult because I think of these taboos and stigmas, and you know, we had to start from really square one. You know, we've been able to identify analogies that I think make the category more approachable as far as like how do we make more proactive, thoughtful, conscious decisions. So we use food a lot, actually, to, you know, to say, look, you think about what you're putting in your body as far as food. You wouldn't go out to a restaurant or cook a meal at home and like use an unknown ingredient, or, you know, the waiter could say to you, like, well, I can't actually disclose that to you, which is what the FDA, basically, because of the way they class tampons, manufacturers aren't required to disclose all the ingredients. And so, you know, I think when we still have a lot to do as far as education, but when we can make those kind of effective analogies, people really can wrap their mind around it.
Got it. And Brian, how about you guys? Like, talk about your approach to innovation and keeping that relationship going with the consumer.
Well, I think, Frank, we have some new products for you, so we can talk later. But our focus on innovation has really been, from the earlier days, focusing on what has been used globally and bringing that to the North American consumer. Now our focus on innovation is still similar, but what we're trying to do is bring new products that kind of surround the behavior of the consumer's daily routine. So it's not just tea, but getting into, as I mentioned, our daily super wellness shots. We're coming out with a number of new products that we focus on, that will focus on the same thing. But innovation for us has always been looking at it from start to finish, from the beginning of the supply chain all the way down to the consumer and back, and looking at what the consumer's needs are, but also trying to figure out what the consumer's needs are before they might know that they need that. Turmeric's a really good example for us, where we launched a line of turmeric teas back in 2014 and 15. And we are noticing from our global travels that turmeric is consumed as a beverage throughout the world, but it wasn't really consumed as a beverage in the North American market. It was more of a culinary ingredient. So we said we really need to bring a turmeric tea to the marketplace and a turmeric beverage. So when we launched that product, we didn't just look for buying turmeric off the shelf. We found a farming community in Madagascar. We helped them become certified organic. We helped them become fair trade certified, and we bought about 6 tons of turmeric that year from them. And we realized after they got their first fair trade premiums that they didn't have any drinking water. They had been drinking out of the river for generations. So we invested through the Numi Foundation about $100,000 and built 23 water wells in that community to ensure that that community of 4,000 people now has running, clean drinking water for life. And this year we're purchasing nearly 200 tons of turmeric from the same farming community. And the turmeric from the consumer perspective, most of you have seen, is just blowing up. And all of our competitors launched turmeric teas. It became a top seller for us, and many of the retailers, some of the biggest retailers we work with, brought in the turmeric teas, including Walmart and Target and that type of thing. So it was a home run to the consumer, it was a home run for our business, but it was also a home run to the whole ecosystem we're trying to serve. So I'm always thinking about it through that lens of how do we find the next turmeric that's going to serve all of these people and serve this community, our greater community, in a way that really drives an impact. So we're doing that with a lot of the new products that we're coming out with in the future as well.
Awesome. And sort of in our remaining few minutes, Frank, I'd love you to touch on, and the rest of the panel as well too. This question of sort of accessibility in health and wellness, right? I mean, certainly, you go to the big trade shows and things like that, and there's a wealth of products out there for health and wellness consumers of a certain sort of socioeconomic class, right? But like, how do you or the industry at large, like, how do we kind of ensure that health and wellness is just not accessible to the upper class? Like, how do we make sure that some of the great things that you guys are all doing, people can kind of attain those and reach those throughout the economic chain?
Well, we definitely, at Earth Fair, we launched our Live Longer campaign 2 years ago, January, and we've been very focused on really the movement to help Americans eat healthier, and really there's sometimes misunderstood barriers, I think, where eating healthy food, some people may think, well, geez, that healthy must not taste good. We found that's a barrier to us. Healthy must cost more, and healthy must mean I'm going to spend a long time making my meals. So we've tried to knock off all three. That you said taste reigns supreme earlier, that people that live in our space really love it and they get it, but when you taste pure, clean food that was intended by the earth, I mean, it's just magically so much better, number one. And on the cost side, we launched a program called Clean Food Security, and we hear about food insecurity quite a lot, and what are we doing to help families have access to nutrition. But we said, well, maybe we could take that a bit farther at Earth Fair and make it not only just to get caloric intake and nutrition, but raise the bar and say clean. So we have a rotating menu that allows a family of 4 to have dinner every night for $70 a week, or $250 a person per night. And those we need to create entry price points from a retailer's view to help bring new customers, remove that preconceived notion that it must cost more to be healthy, and then over time graduate them up. And of course, ultimately, and this doesn't really work in retail, but what's the true cost of being unhealthy? Being sick, being out of work, the cost to the country, Medicare, Medicaid, and the list goes on. But we sort of we'd love to broaden that conversation at Earth Fair to look at it from a country point of view. But at the end of the day, we need to get people to see low prices on the shelf and bring their families to healthier food.
Awesome, cool. And we have about 50 seconds left, and so I'd love to finish up with down the line. In the next 10 years, what's the biggest structural shift you would love to see in the health and wellness space happen, starting with Jordana?
Make you last.
Make you last? Okay, you'll put her last. Brian, you want to kick off?
Well, I think that the shifts we're seeing are fantastic, and I think that we need to continue to see that. I think people focusing on wellness for themselves, but also wellness for the communities in which they live and work, and wellness for our global community on where our products come from. And I think that the need to support purpose-based brands is stronger than ever, and I want to see that continue to grow, because then it just becomes an environment where it's just unacceptable not to do the right thing. And people go out and vote with their dollars each day when they go into an Earth Fair or whatever their store choice is. And I think the more the consumer demands that, the better place we'll all live in. So, thank you.
Frank, 10 seconds.
I guess I would love to see a tectonic shift where Americans demand healthy food and shun all the chemicals that they're unfortunately being presented today, and let's change the trajectory of the health of our country.
And Jordana, take us home.
I mean, exactly what these two men said. I think also, what is the role of government in this? I mean, we sort of, I don't know, you alluded to this a little bit with kind of the regulatory space. The FDA for us is, they are, we're required to be certified by the FDA, but then we also want to be driving change with the FDA. So, how do these brands, I am confident that in the next 10 years we'll see a lot more from these brands to drive change from a regulatory perspective.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for our great panel.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that discussion. As promised, I wanted to highlight a few items that I believe is worth reinforcing to you guys, my community. Firstly, as a male that doesn't think about reproductive healthcare, CPG products like tampons much, if ever, if I'm being completely honest, it was great to hear Jordana Kier speak passionately about her company's purpose and the problems they are solving with women today. That being said, I really enjoyed LOLA's use of personalization when it comes to their product. This type of personalization through product variants, their specific one was using in terms of size, but could easily be translatable to maybe flavor variant, is something that I wish more CPG brands offered on their direct-to-consumer website. Yes, corporately curated variety packs do extremely well on websites or marketplaces like Amazon. It definitely misses the mark if you're looking for like a personally curated variety pack. Another point that I wanted to bring up was around like food prescriptions. It sounds kind of funny to think about food prescriptions until you think about just how important nutrition should be to us overall. I think it gets extremely undermined. I don't want to go into all the reasons why throughout history maybe we have been told incorrect things about diet and nutrition and how that is relating to a lot of the things we are coming across now with disease and other nasty things that is hurting the American life expectancy comparable to a lot of other countries and regions around the world. This idea that nutrition is medicine is not necessarily new, but it is something that needs to be talked about much more. We really need to start thinking about how important nutrition is to our long-term health. But I know that you guys do not click on my channel to be told things like getting your diet and nutrition in check and how important that is. That is not the purpose of my specific soapbox, my channel. So I want to give you guys a sense of how to utilize that in your business. I mean, that's what you guys have come to this channel for. So as a retailer specifically, because this was kind of told in the context of a retailer with Earth Fair, what I'll say is there's a ton of opportunities for a grocery retailer, retailers in general, to really add a ton of value to consumers by educating them, really by adding some personalization things around diet and nutrition protocols, helping a consumer navigate a store with tens of thousands of SKUs and making them aware of what they can and cannot eat based around different prescriptions of food. You heard within that video Earth Fare talking about maybe some omni-channel tactics in terms of having some of their labels call out certain prescriptions, also utilizing that through their mobile app. But this can go as big, detailed, personalized as you want, depending on size of retailer and budgets around different technologies and things that could potentially help with solutions to your customer. Something else that I found extremely interesting, and one that I've often thought about, is around like product labeling and how certifications are just all over certain products, and it's making these products, a lot of which are very small labels, very small products, look like NASCARs. Like, looks like has all those sponsorships from NASCAR, little stickers that are on the car when they're going around the track. It is extremely confusing for consumers. It doesn't matter how much education you have and knowledge you have within the category. I get confused even. What do all these certifications mean? What are important? What are not important? So I think it's important for brands to think about, like, you're spending all this money getting these certifications, and you obviously find them important enough to put on your label. By having all of them on there and confusing customers, are you actually not getting the value, the return on investment of these certifications because they're overwhelming to consumers? So it made me think about like how brands can start think about packaging, really start to think about how the packaging is laid out and how they can integrate some things from a physical product to digital information, to clean up maybe some of that, to add some additional information, easy information to be consumed by a customer. You want simple, you want people to understand things, especially when you're talking about fast-moving consumer goods. People are not going to spend a ton of time doing a ton of research to figure out all the different logos on your package. So brands need to start thinking about how their packaging is going to solve that problem for them so they can get the best return on investment. Specifically, as a functional, fast-moving consumer good, you do have a lot more information that you'd love to give to the customer to differentiate your product, to make sure that that customer knows that that product is great for them. So how can you utilize analog and digital things within a packaging sense to really drive that home without overcomplicating it? With the new consumers that are coming into the market, mainstream lifestyle consumers, a lot of them have a much lower understanding maybe of things from your consumers that you maybe reached 5 or 7 years ago. So you have to think about, how do we not overcomplicate everything? That is not the point of this. So I think it was just an important discussion and something to point to be conscious of when you are creating new product packaging that is directed towards the health and wellness conscious consumer. And while we're talking about packaging and just product in general, I think it's an important discussion that was kind of brought up around transparency. And I know Jordana was making a comment around how if you asked a waiter at a restaurant what is in a specific dish because you had maybe some diet restrictions or maybe you had some issues around ingredients that you might be allergic to, that waiter would not just say, I cannot disclose this. Yet, a lot of CPG categories, the FDA does not make them fully disclose what is in the product. You have things that say may contain this or that. On other categories, you have a lot of products that get kind of shoved into like proprietary blends or different blends, which is extremely common in supplements and sports nutrition. Now, I'm not one that relates transparency with quality or a product meeting or not meeting label claims. I think those things don't necessarily have to go together, which I think a lot of people misassume that a transparent product does mean that it is high quality and it also means that it meets label claims. Those things are completely different. I'm not saying that, but in the context of us living in the information age and us having more information at our fingertips than we've ever had, I think it's an important discussion, something to continuously think about and push this transparency agenda on consumable products. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to help support me, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button on this video. If this is the first time you've been introduced to my videos, would love for you guys to be a part of my community by subscribing to my channel. I upload several videos just like this weekly. And if you guys want to connect further outside of this platform, I do include all of my social media links down below. I just want to thank you guys again for your time. Hopefully I gave you some value in return, and we'll see you guys on the next video.